yourself, that's fine, really.
Jessica, I'll help you with it. After
Cool,
the fact.
thanks.
Yeah. All right. So everybody can see that, right?
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure. Okay, so this is Market Statistics 101. Now, for those of you who have been through this class before, a couple of these things are the same, and then there have been a couple updates, so I'll kind of move through that. You know, as realtors, we have the opportunity many times when we come in contact with people, one of the first things that they ask us is perhaps, what do we do for a living? And when we say that we're a realtor, the first thing they want to know is what? This would be the interactive part of this training. That's where you.
How's the market?
Yeah, how's the market? And even right now with what's going on, as I said, you know, Brian came up with a great way of utilizing that, because obviously he didn't start off with that, but he was asking questions about what's going on in their life. How are they? Is there anything, as he said, is there anything I can do? Do you need, you know, somebody to pick up groceries, a prescription for you? And he was hiring some local people to run around and do these things if one of the clients said that that's what they needed, you know. But then he, you know, when they, after that period of time, he was basically reassuring them that their real estate investment was safe. And as you'll see from some of the statistics later on, I mean, nationally, real estate is still up this year, 3.8%, which normal appreciation is between 3 and 6%. So while our environment is not normal, while the mayor of Las Vegas is definitely off her gourd, you know, real estate is still doing it. Anybody who has not seen that interview, by the way, you just Google it, mayor of Las Vegas, and she's a nutcase, and this proves why you should go out and vote. But I used to live in Las Vegas, so a disclaimer there. While she's the mayor of Las Vegas, that's only downtown Las Vegas. The Strip is part of the county, so it's not included in that. So thank goodness, because nobody in their right mind would elect that woman. So here are, you know, some of the things that realtors truly should know. And I say you should know about this because these are the things that affect your market, affect our industry. What are the average days on market? What's the current list price versus sales price? I have no idea how you could do a buyer consultation or a listing appointment and not know that. What are the current month's supply of homes? And you're going to learn why that is so important. This is probably a number we don't want to know right now. What is the national unemployment rate? Here's a hint. It's, I think, since the Great Depression, it's probably the highest in the history of our country. The good news is we're a very resilient company. We are a very resilient company as well, but we are a very resilient country. What's the unemployment rate in Kansas? What is it in Missouri? Who are the top 25 employers in the Kansas City area? I'm not doing a quiz here, so you're not going to be put on the spot or anything, but Google the top 25 employers in Kansas City, and you'll be surprised by some of the answers that you're going to see. So what is shadow inventory? And shadow inventory is basically that inventory which is not yet currently on the market. So that can be REO, or real estate owned, bank owned properties. That could be your client that's waiting until this pandemic is over. So that property does not currently reflect in the inventory for sale right now. Now, why it's got that nickname shadow is, number one, because you can't see it. And this came into play in a big way back in 2008 when the market crashed. And just as a side note, what we're going through right now is nothing like 2008. 2008 occurred because there were two basic philosophies, both of which are false. Number one, you had a president, you had elected officials that thought that everyone should own a home. Everyone should not own a home, okay? There are people that should stay renters until they get some wealth, so that the first thing that goes wrong with the home, that it's not going into foreclosure. That doesn't do our industry any good. And it's kind of self-serving if you put them into a home just to get a commission check. So that's one of those. The other one that was out there is, we'll package up all these mortgages and sell them as prime loans, when in fact they were subprime and the basic garbage out there. And so back in 2007, basically you could get a mortgage if you had a pulse, or you could fog a mirror. If you watch I think it was The Big Short, that was real life, ladies and gentlemen. So make no mistake about it. You think it's a movie, but it was real. And guess what? This market is nothing like that market. As a matter of fact, there are all sorts of controls in place, and you heard your lender talk about those during some of the team meetings recently. And she basically said, hey, the money's kind of drying up in those low credit scores. That's a good thing, okay? Because as I said, not everyone should own a home. People should have a little bit of reserves when they buy. So we're going to talk about the economic six-pack as well. And these are the factors that affect the future of your business. So just as if you turn to a financial planner, right now you'd be lucky to get them on the phone, but if you reached out to one, they don't know where everything's going right now. But there are certain things that determine what the future of our business is going to be, and they are unemployment, housing affordability, home sales, interest rates and mortgage availability, foreclosures and short sales, and vacancy rates. There's a basic premise out there. I spent 22 years in retail, by the way, working for a Fortune 50 company. And by the way, that was Best Buy. And so if there was a hot new gaming system that came out around Christmas time, there were people lined up around the outside of our stores wanting to buy that, because it was a product that was in high demand and there weren't that many of them. So each store would get 50 in a day, and those would sell out in about the first hour that the store was open. So it's the most basic principle of everything. Right now, you've seen price of toilet paper go up, paper towels, all of those things that are in short supply. I know I ordered some masks online. They came out to about $7 a piece. They're in short supply, so the price is going up. So a product's price is either positively or negatively impacted by the availability. And real estate is no different. It's just that our inventory are houses. So it's a seller's market when there's high demand for a product that's in low supply due to market conditions. And it's a buyer's market when there's low demand for housing that is in high supply. And that's what happened back in 2008. The price of housing will decrease due to an overabundance of it. So when I go back to, if you remember, I mentioned that word shadow inventory. So what was going on as an example in places like Las Vegas was they lost about 50% of their home's value almost overnight. And people had been using their homes like ATM machines. I mean, because they kept watching their real estate values go up 15 and 20% a year. That's not normal. And I even sold my own house out there, and I bought that for $225 and sold about 6 years later for $265. That was normal appreciation, 3 to 6%. Well, my friend's a broker out there, and he sold my home, And I went back years later for a real estate conference, and he said, do you want to buy your home back? And I said, please don't tell me, because I had watched Las Vegas going crazy. And $740,000. Now, I had a nice house out there, I had a pool, a jacuzzi, and 5 bedrooms, 4 baths. It was a nice house, but it should never have been selling for $740,000 unless California had the big earthquake and it was now oceanfront property. Okay, that's the only way it should have been worth that. So all of these people's homes basically lost half of their value overnight. And so they had taken out the home equity loans. So they owed $600,000 on a property that was now worth $300,000. So guess what they did? They went out, bought a new home at the depressed price, and then let the other one go into foreclosure. And the banks had all this inventory that wasn't on the market. And if they had put it on the market, then the property values would have gone down even further. So what the banks did is they controlled how much inventory leaked onto the market so that they weren't selling it for nothing, basically. So that's just an example of that same premise. So what defines a buyer or seller's market? Now, you might listen to Gary Keller in one of the videos, and he'll use a slightly different equation than I do, but I've been tracking the numbers here in the Kansas City marketplace for 14 years. And I will tell you that, as Gary Keller says, real estate is a very local business. So here in the Kansas City marketplace, a seller's market is when there's less than a 3-month supply of inventory. A balanced market is when there's a 3 to 6 month supply of inventory. And a buyer's market is when there's over a 6-month supply of inventory. Now, you have the handout that I gave you. And on that handout, obviously, you've got the spreadsheets. And the whole design over the years, I've modified them and added things, etc. But the whole design of that is to keep things simple, okay? Because that's the way you want it if you're going to be explaining it to a buyer or seller. So here are some of the valuable website resources, and they are all here. KansasRealtor.com is basically the Kansas Association of Realtors. Zan Monroe is a national CRS and GRI instructor, and we're going to talk a little bit, because one of the tools that I have for you, I actually got from Zan Monroe. NARPR, we're going to be going into that quite extensively as well. Fannie Mae and Home Steps are basically Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and they're the instruments that basically buy about 95% of all the loans that are out there. The BLS is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay, that's going to be the most accurate site that you can go to for unemployment. Federal Housing and Finance Authority. I'm going to be showing you this site because there is amazing information that you can get from this site. Your tax dollars are already paying for it. And here's an amazing fact. 90% of the realtors out there don't even know this site exists, okay? So when you talk about differentiating yourself from your competition, that's the way that you can do that. Now, Economagic, and I'm going to see if I can't pull that one up, because I do love that site, because I do have a D personality. So that means when I get in an elevator, I hit the button multiple times to make it go faster, okay? And each one of us is different, but let me just bring this up so I can show you. But this is definitely for people with attention deficit disorder. So let me just share that screen for a second and show that to you, because that's kind of fun. And stop sharing that, and then share this one. So this is economagic.com. And what's cool about this is If you don't want to go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and look at unemployment, you can go right down here and find unemployment. If you want to know what interest rates are doing, here it is. There is a graph for everything. Money supply, household debt, consumer credit, the Federal Housing and Finance Authority. Okay, you want to know what's going on with home price indexes, house sales. It's all here in a graph. So if you want to update yourself on everything happening around the world in about 5 minutes or less, this is the site for you, because everything is a graph, including we talked about unemployment. So there's unemployment cost index. There's more things. I don't even understand half of them. But again, it's all here on this site. Here is, let me bring
Are the
up
graphs
this.
downloadable?
I'm sorry?
Are the graphs downloadable? Like,
Yes, I captured or screen captured them, yes. So again, it's just a great way to get that information really quickly. Here's home housing vacancies and home ownership, construction put in place, house sales. I mean, you name it, it's all there. And so they've just put them all on here, which is kind of nice. So here's another site, which is great. And I strongly urge you to do this one. This is called CoreLogic. And I will tell you that I like to be, people think I'm like, you know, a math nerd or something like that. Let me assure you, I am not. I was horrible at it in school. But here's the thing. I do want to know about the industry I'm in. I don't feel as if I can do a good job for my clients unless I understand what's going on in the market. And so they actually publish a report here. You can look at almost anything, but I sign up for, and it's on your handout there, the Market Pulse Report. Now, some of them have to do with lending, you know, and if you're not interested in that, then delete it. But the Market Pulse Report really gives you an idea of what's going on in the marketplace, and it's totally unbiased because it's not coming from NAR or anyone else. So great information there. This is another site that I'd like you to definitely bookmark and go to, and it's called Cost versus Value. It helps if I put in a T. And it helps if I spell correctly too. Yes, I do love Costco as well, but that's not the purpose of this. So what they do each year is they interview by virtue of sending out surveys, but they basically send this out to builders and realtors. And so what you're able to do on this site is you can go into the area. So I'll give you an example. My mother-in-law called me and asked me, she wanted to do a high-end kitchen remodel. And she said, is that a good investment? So what I did is, she lives in Buffalo, New York. So I went up here and I basically input the information and found out that she would get 101% return on her money if she did a high-end kitchen remodel. So what do you think I said? Sure, go do it, right? And because I sure as heck didn't want to be wrong. I mean, holidays would be absolutely miserable at that point because I'd hear about it for the rest of my life. So you can go in here and pick Kansas. What's helpful about this is because every seller that you'll come into contact with basically took what they paid for their house, and every single item that they've added to it, even paint, new HVAC, roof, you name it, and they added the retail value onto all of it, and that's what they expect you to get. Unless you are preparing for failure, you better figure out where the return on investment is. You know, I like to say, does her new roof add value? Not necessarily. I mean, if the whole neighborhood had a hailstorm and everybody got a new roof, no, yours isn't worth more than anybody else's. I always like to say people expect a functional heater And air conditioning, people expect a functional roof. People expect a functional hot water heater. So does it make it more marketable? Yes, in my opinion, it does. So looking at these other sites here, let me just get back to our PowerPoint. And looking at these other sites, see if I shared that properly. Not yet, I haven't, have I? Do you have the screenshot there? No? Hold on. And, okay, so, we were at costversusvalue.com, put in the zip code, download that. NAR Realtors, obviously the National Association of Realtors. You've got jocogov.org. I'm going to be showing you this later, but that's an incredible resource here. There's the census.gov. Many of you probably received these in the mail. I know I kept ignoring it until I got about 5 different notices and, you know, saying that it's against the law not to answer them. Here you've got the Kansas Real Estate Commission on there. HUD Home Store, which is where a lot of people can look for homes. This is the Missouri Real Estate Commission. Bankrate.com is probably the most accurate when it comes to interest rates. And then this last one is called airvent.com. And Marty McKinney, my roofer, turned me on to this site, but there's great information there. If you really want to understand how a roofing system works, and as I always like to explain to buyers that I look at homes differently than you do. You're looking at it as this is where you're going to raise your family, entertain, etc. And I'm looking at a home differently. I'm looking at potential pitfalls in resale value. I'm looking at potential material defects in the property, things of that nature. And I tell them that, you know, after we've seen a home, I'll give you the positives and negatives of each one that you're interested in. Does that sound good to you? And they all always say yes. And so again, I don't need to point out, oh, look, these are granite counters, or this is the master bedroom. I mean, I tend to work with smart people that can probably figure out what a master bedroom is all on their own. And they don't have stupid tattooed on their forehead. So the other piece here is your mobile applications. And again, there are some great mobile applications. HomeSpotter, this was previously the Heartland MLS, the HUD Home Store, there's one. Realtor.com, now I'm not a fan of Realtor.com. I always look at it as a painful reminder that the leadership of the National Association of Realtors did something incredibly stupid and sold it. But then again, we as realtors were all sitting there going, oh, we can't share that price per square foot or that sold data. And that's what consumers wanted. So we gave birth to Zillow, believe it or not. So it's a very sad reminder of that. And they're actually worse than Zillow now, because if you go to an ad there and it says, oh, you want more information on this property, and you fill that out, whatever realtor is paying for that zip code is going to get that information. So you're better off with Zillow because we have an agreement with them. So Gary Keller was able to make sure that if they go and see your listing, your contact information is next to your listing. I never thought I'd see the day when I said that that Zillow was better than Realtor.com, but it happened. And then RPR, the mobile version, I literally use this all the time when I am out showing. You've got an instant, you've got a map there, GPS. You can tell whether you're at the high end of the neighborhood, what the recent sales have been. You can look at the public information on the property you're showing versus the listing data. RPR is the best tool that the National Association of Realtors ever provided us. And as I said, now because we're one of the premier accounts in the country, there's a lot more that you can do with it as well. Trulia and Zillow, obviously, you know, I'm a big fan of The Godfather, and they say, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies even closer. So I like your consumers are going there, like it or not. they're going there. So you better understand a little bit about them. And then you've got Home Snap as well. Now, what is a fact and what is an opinion? And a fact is something that's actually taken place or known to have existed. And it can be validated with evidence. It can be measured, observed, and proven, and it's supported by concrete statistics and documentation. And I'm going to be showing you how you can pull a lot of facts so that when you're sitting down with a buyer or with a seller, that you can demonstrate your market knowledge. And then, as I like to say, you get to make a business decision. Okay, and I say that because you probably don't want to work with every single buyer, even if you're deluded into thinking you do. Okay, sooner or later you're going to find out that there's a buyer you don't want to go out and show homes because they called you at 5:30 and they expect you to be at the house they want to see by 6. And I'd encourage you to have a life in real estate. Okay. Maybe right now you're a little stir crazy. You'd be happy to go out and show a home, but seriously, you're going to find buyers that want to put in offers at 50% of the list price, and they missed their opportunity. That was back in 2008. So what is an opinion? An opinion is something that can't be proven true or false. It's what a person thinks or feels about something, and it's usually based on biased information. It's influenced by personal feelings, perspectives, beliefs, values, etc., and it can't be verified with evidence. So, and then what does that have to do with pricing properties? Well, if you want to be seen as a consummate professional and stand out from your competition, you need to be able to back up your pricing recommendation to a seller with facts about the local market. And the sad reality is that there are an awful lot of realtors out there that do not understand the market. And they have really lame scripts like, is now a good time to buy? Oh yes, 365 days a year, doesn't matter what year, it's always a great year to buy, and it's always a great year to sell. So again, rather than giving them a few facts about the marketplace and letting them come to their own conclusion, because you are presenting facts. So these are the resources that you really want to be considered, and they will consider to be credible. So when you look at, I always used to say, who says it matters, okay? I may say something, maybe locally, you guys go, yeah, well, he's our broker and he knows his market statistics and, all around nice guy. Well, maybe you wouldn't say the latter part of it, but the first part would be true. And so if Gary Keller comes out and says something about real estate, everybody listens, okay? Why? He's got a number of best-selling books. He's the CEO of the largest real estate company out there, so he is credible. So again, most of your competition is going into a buyer consultation or they're going into a listing appointment, and they have, in the case of a listing appointment, they're going in there with one thing. It might be 4 color, but they're going in there with the CMA, and there it is. They put it in front of them like it's the basis for everything in life. And I'm going to teach you how to go in with 4 independent sources of information. The first one is going to be coming from the Federal Housing and Finance Authority. Now, it's the federal government. It's your tax dollars at work. So that alone is fairly credible on its own. The National Association of Realtors Real Estate Property Resource, what I call RPR, but when I tell the client where it's from, this is from the National Association of Realtors database, because that sounds pretty impressive when you given that we have a couple million members and it's from our database. Realist. Now you see this link in the MLS and you're thinking, okay, what's that? And what Realist is its core logic, okay? Realist provides real estate agents and brokers with the perspective necessary to identify and understand everything about the marketplace, okay? As an MLS, we have access through Realist to 98% of all the US real estate transactions, which is updated daily from thousands of public and private sources. You're able to research and make marketing decisions with 99.8% of all the US property owners, 98% of all the zip codes, 100% of all the US county, municipal, and special tax districts. That's 3,141 counties. 80% of all the mortgage applications are also accessed through there. 500 million historical transactions spanning back more than 40 years. And you've got digital mapping of more than 88% of the nation's property parcels. That's a little bit more impressive than CMA. It's an opinion on price. Now, I'm going to teach you the way I do it, which is using the same criteria that an appraiser would, because that way you're using it as a tool to basically best guess to some degree what an appraiser is going to look at when they're looking at the property as well. So one of the first things you need to do in this pricing process is you need to pull up reports on the subject property. So the property that your client wants to make an offer on, or the property that you're going to go out and list. And you need to first look at the property history. Now, even when you're out there helping a buyer, you should be looking at the property history. Why are you looking in there? You want to see, did that thing go pending? Okay. If it did, your next question of the listing agent is, hey, did that buyer conduct inspections? And if so, please send me a copy of all of them. Otherwise, you're looking at the history and you're finding out when that person purchased the property. Okay. You're also able to pull up here the Realist full property detail. And I send this to my clients, and I'll show you how you can create a report there. But typically I'm going to send an RPR report before I ever leave my house to go out on a listing appointment. I'm sending it several days in advance, as a matter of fact, because if you print that out and stick it into a pretty binder, they're not going to be able to look at it. The Realist report you're going to see is pretty heavy with a lot of details as well, but I will print that one out. That will typically go in along with my comparative market analysis. I always love when I call to kind of follow up with people before I'm going out there for a listing appointment, and they go, wow, I printed that. That was 53 pages. Well, you know that they looked at it then. That's the impressive part. And again, I just want to, because then when I'm even sending it to them, remember I said how I identify that. So even if I'm sending them an RPR report, what do? Do I tell them this is my opinion of price? No, I said, this is from the National Association of Realtors database. Now I might say, I'll be also pulling in information from 3 other independent sources. And when we get together, I'll be able to obviously reference all of those things. And I'm going to see your property in person, and I'll be able to give you then an accurate assessment of what the fair market value will be. You see how different that is than, I'm not saying it's the gospel right off the bat. I'm setting up the stage for when we actually meet. So you've pulled that, you've found out when that property last sold, and you're finding out when it sold. So you need the quarter and year of when that property sold. You also need to check, by the way, if there were any seller concessions, okay? Because that's very important. Because just the way we have a hard time explaining to buyers that, okay, this is the most common thing that I get broker calls on, but I hear from one of you and you say, well, we made a full price offer. And I say, okay, tell me about that. Well, the list price was $250,000 and we offered $250,000. Okay, what else? And then you say, well, we asked for $5,000 of seller paid closing costs. Well, then you've got to get your clients out of that mindset because they didn't make a full price offer. Okay, they made an offer of $245,000 because that $5,000 is real money to the seller, and it's just an amount per month. Probably, as a matter of fact, the amount per month would be about $24 a month in monthly payments. That's about what that is, because it's about $48 a month. It's $44.90 a month for $10,000. So really, it's like $22.50 in monthly payments for a buyer, yet $5,000 real dollars in off of the price. So that, but the buyer thinking, well, I offered them full price. No, you didn't. You made actually, just to do the math real quick, which is something I always talk about, but before I present offers to my seller, or if I receive offers in, I always do the math on it ahead of time. So in the example I just gave you, where somebody offered $245,000 and the list price was $250,000, they made a 98% offer. And the reason that's important to translate it into a percentage is because I've found that very many times the sellers say, well, what do you think? And they're asking you for what? An opinion. What should your opinion be based upon? Facts. So if the average list price to sales price is 97.2% and they made a 98% offer, well, what do you think about that? Is that an above average offer? I'd say so, because if you don't translate it into a percentage, they're going to act like the buyer personally broke down the door, assaulted the wife, and stole the money right out of the safe. That $5,000. It was horrible. They tortured your family until they got the $5,000. And that's the way they treat it. And it's not. It was an asking price. It was a list price. It didn't say the gold standard price. It said the list price. So get in the habit of translating that into a percentage. And guess what? I do the same thing with buyers too. Wow. Well, remember I told you the average list price to sales price is 97.2%. Now there's a caveat there with buyers, because while I'm at the house that they say, this is the one, the first question I ask them is, do you think this is an above average home or a below average home? Now I have yet to go back to the office and write up an offer on the below average home. They all tell me it's an above average home that they want to make an offer on. So when you get back there, you remind them, remember when we sat down for the buyer consultation, I told you the average list price to sales price was 97.2%. Now, while we were at the home, you told me that you thought this was an above average home. You know something? I've run the comps here and I think so too. So if you want to own that home, we're going to need to make an above average offer. This will stop you from having the pain of, after hours away from your family, missed meals, the whole 9 yards. Not to say I couldn't miss a meal right now with this quarantine business, but when you write that offer and they tell you they want to offer like 90%, you're going to wish you had done this, because that's going to be an hour and a half of your life that you're never going to get back. And you and I both know they're not getting that property for 90% off of list price, unless it's grossly overpriced and it's been on the market for around 90 days. That's the only way that's going to occur. So just a great tip on how you present that. So again, one of the first things you're going to do is you want to select comparables and you want to view the market trends there. Now, this has changed in Realist. I'm going to need to update this because it looks a little different. You have two different versions of Realist. The data is all still there. But again, you're able to look at, and this is really helpful if you're not in this nice and tidy little subdivision where everything's basically the same. If you're in an area that's more spread out, you can actually go in here and it's going to show you the map, and you can pick the ones that are closest to the subject property. It's kind of like what the appraisers do on a regular basis. But if you're not familiar with that area, it's a great tool to help you. Now, typically during this class, I ask people, what do you think the average, what percentage of homes do you think sell for above their county appraised value? And I get answers each and every class of, oh, like 90, 95%. Well, guess what? Facts don't lie, because here's one from back then, but you look at this, and this one was showing Johnson County, Kansas, and guess what? About 53% of the homes sold below the tax appraised value, and about 46% of them sold above the tax appraised value. And yet when I ask this question, 95% of the audience are going, oh yeah, like 90% sell above. So, and we're professional realtors. So you can see why if a lot of us were fooled. Obviously, the homeowner has misconceptions about what fair market value is as well, but that's our job, is to show them. So again, the first site you're going to go to is the Federal Housing and Finance Authority, and I'm going to call that up in just a second. You might as well bookmark this page because you are going to utilize it a lot. And let me share. So this is, I'll start you right from the beginning on this. Of course, right now they've got COVID information and everything else, just like everybody else. So obviously, and you can see there that the Federal Housing and Finance Authority said no evictions, no foreclosures. So all I want, there's a lot of stuff on here. So if you're really bored at home, you can go through this site to your heart's content. But for purposes of this class, I want you to look at data and tools. And I want you to go down to where it says tools, and you're going to click that. Now, if you look at the last page of your market statistics package, you're going to see, and that you're going to find that right here. Do you see where this says home price index summary tables? Well, here's what your tax dollars do each quarter, is they rank all 50 states in terms of appreciation or depreciation, and they've done so since 1991, okay? So they've been tracking these numbers for 31 years, and they rank all 50 states. So this comes out once a quarter, okay? So can anybody tell me why Idaho is #1 in the country? Don't look at the numbers. And it blew me away too, because I actually had a client who is moving here from Idaho. And I always like, when I do a buyer's consultation, I always have this with me. See, it's the last page of your report. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I know they have potatoes, but why are they #1? And so I had to find out. And so they are like the new Silicon Valley, okay? I mean, people are moving there from California, literally paying cash for the homes because they sold their 2-bedroom, 1-bath shack for $1.2 million. And then they're buying a McMansion there for $400,000 or $500,000. Now, remember I said Case Shiller, the leading economist, says normal appreciation is between 3 and 5%. So as we read this across, their appreciation for the quarter is 2.75. For the year, though, they're almost double what normal is. and look at that 5-year total. They're up 65% in value over 5 years. And then if you take this number, that number in the far right column, and you take that number and you divide it by 31 years, you'll find that their average appreciation now has gone up to 8.94% a year. Now, here's the thing. If it's being driven by their economy, meaning jobs and income and things like that, fantastic. But if it's not being driven by the economy, then it's real estate speculation. And then what happened in Las Vegas and Florida and Arizona, that's what will happen, is what goes up must come down. So let's track on down the list here and let's check out Kansas. And can anybody spot where Kansas is? We're 33rd, okay? And Missouri is 19th. They flip-flop a lot. But so we typically are like steady Eddie. We never go up that much. We never go down that much. As a matter of fact, if you take that last column, 159.43, you divide it up by 31 years, the average appreciation in Kansas is 5.14%. Okay? Is that normal? Yes. Okay. So we had gotten as high in Kansas at one point. It was in the last quarter, excuse me, it was in the third quarter of last year, and I was actually scared because we jumped up. We were 7th in the country. Okay. We're never up there. I've never seen it that high in 14 years that I've been tracking the numbers. So it was getting a little dangerous there. Now you look at for 5 years, we're at 4.65%. Look at Missouri, 5.67%. Do you know why Missouri is tracking ahead of Kansas right now? Anybody? You can unmute and say something. It's all right. I like interaction.
Cannabis.
What's that? You got it. As a matter of fact, almost every state that is legalized cannabis is up over 40% in market value over the last 5 years. So it's money coming into the economy. I'm not advocating for or against, none of it. It's just it's money coming into the country. And guess who else is getting a lot of money from that? Last year, California brought in $1.1 billion in sales tax off of cannabis. They be high out there. Okay, no doubt. So that's this last page on the reports, and that's where that number comes from, okay? So the other thing that's on this site that I want you to pay attention to is that was your home price index summary table. Now let's look at the home price index calculator. And what you can do here is you can search by either state or by MSA, and MSA is a market service area. So like if you went into the MSA, you could find Kansas City, so you'll find major metropolitan cities, but you won't find like Overland Park or something. You would just find the Kansas City marketplace. But just for giggles, let's go ahead and put in a home here. So remember, you looked up when that person bought the home, okay? And as a matter of fact, I just did this for one of my clients who I had been showing a home to. And this home, the person just bought it, what was it, like 3 years ago. And so what I did is I looked up what the person paid for the property. Matter of fact, I actually even have it in my notes because I had actually, this was a property that my client was considering making an offer on, and they purchased it in, so that's what you're looking at. You're looking at the purchase quarter here, and they purchased it in, let's see, the fourth quarter of 2017. So I would find the fourth quarter of 2017, and then you're always going to use for the valuation quarter, the most current quarter that's available. And they purchased the property, by the way, for $335,000. And I printed this off and I showed my client. Now you see right here, it's showing that the value, the estimated value of that property is $371,151. So what are they basing that upon? What this does is it shows when you bought the property, and it's going based upon the average appreciation and depreciation since they bought it. Now, why I really like this, in this case, it was helpful because I'm working with a buyer. And so we could sit there and say, okay, they bought it for this. This is what the appreciation is. Now, what have they done to the property since they bought it, right? That cost versus value component. Well, they actually have this property listed for $427,000. So do I think it's worth $427,000? Well, it's not just this that I'm using, but obviously I ran a comparative market analysis. I pulled an RPR report. I pulled a realist report. So I've got all those different sources to help me determine, is that the fair market value for the property? And guess what? It's been sitting on the market now like 66 days and it hasn't sold. Why hasn't it sold? It's overpriced. Do I know what its fair market value is? Yes, I do. And I gave that range to my client as well. And I told them that the market value of this property is between $375,000 and $385,000. So we can sit back and relax because I know it's not selling for that property. It is overpriced. And you've seen this, I'll show this at the end, but you've seen my housing pond before, and it shows properties that are overpriced just 4 to 6%, they get showings, but they can get no offers. Properties that are overpriced between 6 to 10%, they don't even get showings. So again, it's always about the price, but this is a great tool because the consumer thinks that their property does nothing but go up in value. And this is really impactful, particularly right now. Yes, did it take a little turn here recently? Yes, a little turn, and that's a big difference. And again, that's going to vary based upon the area and state and everything else. But this is something I don't send to them, but in the case of a listing appointment, but I'm going to print this off and I'm going to have this with me, because if I need to bring out a reality check and show them that, look, based upon the average appreciation, depreciation, this is what your home would be worth based upon that. Because you go out on listing appointments and they always say, oh, but my neighbor down the street sold for this. Well, again, I looked at that one online and they had all brand new appliances, new fixtures, new this, new that. They had lovingly taken care of that property, and you bought your property 10 years ago and you've done zip to it, okay? So there's a big difference between those two. So anyway, I wanted to show you that one. And let me go back to the other, my PowerPoint here. And so we can continue there where we left off. So again, that's where that information is. And you can pull that information up. You can check out other things on the site. Now, the other thing is generating a seller's report, as I mentioned earlier, through RPR. You can do it, you can do that from a lot of times I'm out showing and I'll just pick seller property report, boom, put in their email, and I'll send it before I've even gotten back home on that property that they're interested on. But again, we all know that it's so easy to do this. All you have to do is type in an address. Is there anyone who hasn't registered on RPR? Good, thank you. And your client doesn't need to know that you didn't slave for hours preparing that report. They don't need to know that it took you less than 10 seconds to type in the address to get all that information. They're just impressed. You can also utilize a cloud CMA for pricing a property. Again, how you prepare your CMA is, I'm going to show you how I do it, but it's more important about where you're getting your information from. So I've provided you here the packet that I put on Facebook, but this packet literally goes everywhere with me. I mean, it's in my backpack. I have a copy in my listing presentation binder. If I were going to do an appointment virtually, I can do the same thing. All of you have this now digitally, and you could show that. Now, obviously, we're going to talk about the spreadsheet, but I really don't go beyond the spreadsheet or the last pages if I'm sitting down for that buyer consultation. Why I like using this is I can show them, here's where you're moving from, and here's our state. And so it does get them into a good mindset. I mean, I remember some people that were moving in from Texas, and I showed them, this is your market. And they're going, oh yeah, we had multiple offers. Second day on market, we sold it. Well, they understand what a hot market is. Matter of fact, they were hotter than this market. So, but all these other reports here that are in here, I'm just going to review what they are and where they come from, okay? So that you can, should you want to pull this information, I mean, I'm giving you broad strokes here. I do this now for 4 different counties. So you have a spreadsheet for each one of those. But let's say that you want to figure out what the market stats are in your own neighborhood. If you wanted to figure them out for just your city, you can do that. And I'm going to show you real briefly how and where you get these reports from. So the first thing that, that you're going to do is just go to the MLS, obviously, and so that you know how to pull these reports up. I know that most of you are spoiled because I do it for you, but at least you'll know how to do it. And by the way, this is where you stay up to date. This is where you stay up to date on a lot of the COVID things that are going on. And of course, here's a lot of the things that I pointed out to you earlier. Here's your core logic. Go right into realist. This is RPR, matrix, and cloud CMA here as well. But so let's just go into the MLS, and I'll show you where I get all of these reports and what they are real briefly. Do you see, do I have the screen up first of all? No?
Nope.
Thank you.
I was going to wait before I called you out on it.
Oh, no, I really wish you would do that earlier, because it's like, you know, just when you're showing this stuff, you don't know necessarily. Okay, so once again, obviously here's the MLS, here's RPR, here's realist, here's cloud CMA. So they're all on here. So I'm just going to go into well, that's weird. Why is it not working? That's funny. My internet was working just fine, wasn't it? Let me check my connection. That's all good. Mouse battery is a little low, but not that low. That's very strange. Let me try closing that out and trying to reopen it. Maybe we'll have more success that way. All right, let me share again. Okay, you can see the screen now. So right over here is where you're going to see Heartland forms and documents. If you click on that, the first 3-page report that you're going to see is the home sales report. Obviously, you can pull this one up by county. Here is Johnson County. So this is 3-page report. One is going to be for new homes, one is going to be for resales, and one is going to be for total. Now, for purposes of my spreadsheets, I only utilize resale homes. Does anybody know why that is? Don't all talk at once. All right. The
I was
reason
going
I
to say,
only
is that
use,
the only one that matters?
well, 95% of your sales likely at least are resale homes. But
Yeah.
there's two other reasons why I pulled data out of different reports, and I don't just use the one from Heartland MLS with all the bar graphs already created. And here's the reason why. Do new homes accumulate days on market?
No.
Do new homes get discounted in the sales process?
Usually not.
Not usually.
If they are being discounted, I'm probably going to take my client away from that subdivision because there's likely a problem with the subdivision or the builder, especially during the current market. What they will do is sometimes make some accommodations that don't show everywhere else, but that's why new home builders won't take money off the property itself typically, because if they do, every single realtor will know that you took $5,000 off this property. So what's every single realtor going to want? $5,000 or more off of that property. And so if a builder discounts one, he's discounting his entire inventory. And that's a great way to explain it to the consumer. I may be able to get you some additional concessions in your fixture allowance, your lighting fixture allowance, or I might be able to get you a little bit more in carpet or this, or perhaps closing costs or discount off of basement finish. But from my experience, builders typically do not want to take it off the price of the home. And if they do, you may have an issue there. Okay. So I only use resale data in my reports. So that's the first one, is the home sales. The next one on the list here is your stat reports. Now, the stat reports are done by state, Kansas or Missouri, and these will break it down by county. And this is really showing you the activity that's going on in the marketplace. Now, what are pending contracts? Pending contracts are the future closed contracts, or at least they should be, right? I know a lot of them are going south right now. But you're seeing the same way that retail reports, hey, same store sales are up 5% from last year. This is doing the same thing here. Now, if you look at pending contracts for March, they're down 22%. So you would be a fool to think that closings won't be down 60 days from now. So again, but you can see also the difference that you're down. You're down 1% year to date. You look at closed sales. Well, closed sales are actually up 8% year to date. You're looking at the average sales price. Well, the average sales price is actually up 11%. So when you look at last year versus this year, you're seeing a trend. Now, again, this is Johnson and it's broken down, and here's all of Heartland here. So that's what that report is going to show you. The other reports are the activity reports. The activity reports, when you click on that, this is showing you, it's breaking it down by MLS area. Those of you who are newer in the business go, what is that? Unless somebody took the time to show you. But this is the way we used to have to search for properties, was using an MLS area. And they were just random areas that were drawn out. You can still see that MLS map. It's available on that homepage for the MLS. But it's showing you how much available inventory is there in each area, how many are new, the average list price, how many went pending, how many sold, what the average sale price is. Now, this is one of the reasons I like this report, because you can see certain areas, things on average are selling over 100%, okay? Whereas other areas are down a little bit more. So again, it gives you some perspective, one area to another area. And look at that. You've got the average days on market, okay? So again, you can tell what are the hottest markets. They're selling for over list. Their days on market are really low. How many were withdrawn, expired, and then of course back on market. So again, now what I do pull from this report is right here, because they break out commercial lots and land and multi-dwelling. So when I want to look at what's the average list price to sales price for our MLS, here it is, 98.4%. It's right there. Now there's other data that I pull out of these, but I'm just trying to give you in essence what each one of the reports shows. So you have those first three. Now those all come out on the 15th of the month. Now, normally Katie is calling me and bugging me on the 15th of the month going, where are my stat reports? To which I tell her, I'm busy. I promise I will get them to you, but a lot of times I don't get them till late in the afternoon. And, you know, I'm usually solving at least 50 crises a day. I often joke, I'm part priest, part therapist, and part broker. So those first three reports come out on the 15th of the month in a perfect world, unless it falls on a weekend. The Market Watch report comes out quarterly. And usually there'll be an announcement that'll come up in the MLS. When you log on, it'll say, hey, first quarter Market Watch report is available. Now this breaks it down by county. Now, put it this way, I've pulled these numbers for so long that literally when the company that puts these together for our MLS made a mistake, I said, you know, pages 15 through 17 are always Johnson County. I think they made a mistake and they thought I was nuts. And then they went and checked and they found that I was right. So yes, I literally know which page numbers they are. And so what I'll typically do is just pull, you know, Johnson County or the other counties, but you can pull any county you want from this. And again, this is the only report that'll break things down by zip code for you. Okay, so this is really good information. If you want to look at a specific zip code, you can do it here and you can look at the historic information. And so in your packet, you do have Johnson County in there. And so here's the first quarter Market Watch report. So again, you could, if you're taking a listing in a specific zip code, you can go right along here and say, wow, what's the average sales price? Is it up or down? Percentage of list price to sales price, days on market, closed sales. So this is great information. And then of course it's giving you the bar chart here. Now, here's why it's important to understand the differences, because here you see the average sales price, the percentage of list price to sales price, etc. But remember that this encompasses new homes. So it does skew the data a little bit. And that's why I only put the resale onto my spreadsheet, okay? So that's your NAR Market Watch report. Here are, these are the monthly indicator and local market watch reports. And these obviously come up monthly. And you can pull them up and you will see here you have the monthly indicators, and this is for, you know, the entire month. Then you can pick out Heartland MLS, you can pick out the counties here. And again, they do have some graphics here if you choose to use it in some type of marketing. That's great. You have every right to. You pay your MLS dues, might as well enjoy it. Now this, again, does break it out by county and it is monthly, but again, this incorporates new homes and multifamily, and that can skew the data. So I just want you to understand that. So those are basically all the reports that are inside the packet that I put out. Well, that's where all the reports come from. I usually just put out the spreadsheets, but you do have a copy of all the reports. Here's what I will tell you is the benefit to you pulling it and not just attending whatever class I happen to be teaching in one of my market centers, is because if you're pulling this information on a monthly basis and adding the quarterly reports, you will start seeing trends. You really will. You will start going, oh man, that's going up, or that's starting to really taper off. You will start seeing the trends yourself because you're doing it. It's a repetitive behavior. It's no different than practicing guitar or whatever it happens to be. You will start learning about it if you do that. If not, well, the good news is I've added market trends both on inventory onto my spreadsheets, so you won't be lost even if you choose not to do that. So we're going to come back to those in a second. All right. So that's where you pulled all those reports from. So you have that. Now we're back to this. So this is what you need to do in order to calculate absorption rate. This is the most important skill that you need to learn. And the absorption rate is basically the rate at which available homes are sold in a specific real estate market during a specific period of time. And I'm going to pull up, let me see if I've got the link to the video here. And see if it runs from here.
What is absorption rate?
Can you see my screen?
Why is it so important? We'll cover the why.
Yes.
Okay, good.
So absorption
And you
rate
can hear it?
simply is the rate at which homes sell in any area.
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit.
And it's actually very easy to figure this out. First, pick a period of time. Let's just say 12 months. Now what you have to do is figure out the number of homes sold in that area over that period of time. And you can do all homes, you can do condos, single families, it's really up to you. But let's just say, again, keeping it simple, that there are only 24 homes sold in this neighborhood. Now what we're going to do is divide the number of homes sold by the number of months. So 24 homes divided by 12 months equals, again, I told you it's very simple, just 2 homes sold per month. So what does this mean to us? Well, if 4 homes are currently for sale, and we know that 2 homes sell each month, then 4 divided by 2 equals, I told you this was going to be easy, 2. These 4 homes are going to be sold in 2 months, assuming they're priced appropriately. And what does this mean to you? Why is this even important? Let's say you want to sell your house in just 1 month so you can take your dream job in another state. Well, don't you think this would be a good thing to know? Knowing your specific market's absorption rate will tell you a lot about how long your home is going to sit on the market and how much you need to price it to get it sold faster, later, or not at all. So do yourself a favor, talk with a proactive, trusted real estate consultant who will get you the results you deserve with a data-driven and market-savvy approach. I'm John Graff, your Los Angeles real estate agent. I really hope that was helpful. And if it was, feel free to like and share.
Okay, so obviously this guy understands it, and that originally I learned about absorption rate from Zan Monroe, and he used to have a really good video on there about that. And so he no longer has that video on there, but I Googled it and found this guy's, and it was just as simple to understand. But if you do want to, if there's one skill that you can take away and get good at on your own, it's figuring out absorption rate, because particularly if you happen to farm a particular area or neighborhood, knowing the absorption rate 24/7 pretty much in a neighborhood where you're trying to gain market share, it really does help you, because again, you know, how soon do you need to be at your new job? Okay, well, I need to be there within 2 months. Okay, well, we all know that the average time from contract to close is between 30 to 60 days, 45 is an average. Well, that means I need to get his home under contract within 2 weeks to achieve that goal. And again, that's our job. How soon, when does your lease run out? Okay, we know how long they have. We know what the inventory is on the market. Now, many of on the spreadsheet that, you have in front of you, I'm breaking down, I've done this absorption rate for you, okay? If you pull up your screen or look at these, you will see under current month's market supply, that is your absorption rate, okay? For each and every price point, I've broken it down for you. So if you go, let's just all look at the same one so you're not, which one do you have on top? Is it
I have
Jack?
Johnson County printed, but that's just me.
Okay, that's fine. So let's do Johnson. And so here's Johnson County. And again, as you can see on here, if you read right across, if you look at month's supply of inventory, oh my goodness, you are up to, if you look at below 400,000, you're dealing with less than a 2-month supply of homes in every single price point below $400,000. So yes, is there some economic impact going on because of the coronavirus? Yes, there is. There's people who are being furloughed. There are people that are losing their jobs. There are businesses that are closed right now, which is why my whole message has been fly underneath the radar, be responsible, be safe. But you're making those calls right now, talking to your sphere, asking them how they're doing. And if you sold them a home a year ago, saying something like, I just want you to know that your real estate investment is still good, because they've gotten nothing but bad news from the stock market. And their 401k statements, generally that's where they want to do social distancing from their statement. They don't want to be within 6 feet so they can read it. Okay, I actually saw a cartoon on that, but that's the reality. And yet real estate market values are still extremely strong. Why? Because we were in such a low supply of these homes that even if half of our buyers went bye-bye, guess what? There's still a shortage of inventory. You're still going to remain in a seller's market. So it's kind of comforting if you're having that conversation. Hey, I just want you to know that your real estate investment is safe. And would you like me to send you a report? No, that's all you have to say. You're not unsolicited mailing to them. You're asking, would you like me to send a report? So what could you send them at that point?
CMA, seller's report.
You could do a CMA. What else could you send them?
Seller's report.
Yeah, that's right. A seller's report through RPR, right? I mean, all of 10 seconds worth of typing. Just don't do it while you're on the phone with them, right? Because then they'll know that you're really not working very hard when you put that thing together. I mean, I want people to think that I really did slave my butt off doing that. So you can do that. What else could you send them? You could send them this. Are they going to have questions on how to read this? I mean, try and make it easy, right? But they probably wouldn't know what the odds of selling are. They probably wouldn't know necessarily what some of these things meant. Hey, next time I call, you have some spare time, love to review that with you. Can you teach somebody how to read this? I think so. So again, it's a tool, and the whole reason, while I may have all of this data to back things up, this is all I'm showing my clients for the most part. I may go to, as I said, the FHFA.gov report, absolutely. Buyer consultation, and they're moving from out of state, I always use that. Could I show them the quarterly Market Watch report because it shows their zip code? Absolutely, I can. So again, it's just, if you're going in with all 4 of these sources of information and your competition's going in with the CMA, if you can't win, shame on you, seriously. Because again, I know that most people don't understand the market at even a rudimentary level. And again, when you go in and the other agent's going, and you're going in showing, and this is the important thing, because if you're showing them 4 independent sources of information, and they all say that their home, that the market value is between $375,000 and $400,000, and they want to price it at $500,000, you have a business decision to make. Are you willing to spend your time, money, marketing that property that you know has absolutely no chance of selling for that amount of money. And I was just having this conversation with Jim Vogel earlier because we were talking about something, and I told him, Jim, I pass a property on 151st Street all the time, especially when I had a branch office down there. Used to pass it, and you know something? I was the 4th realtor on that property. There have been 3 before me. All those listing agreements had expired. I was number 4. I was new. I was confident that my good looks and charm could sell that all on my own. Okay, I came to grips with reality. My listing expired, and there've been 5 realtors after me. And guess who still lives there?
Same person.
Yep. So I passed by that home, and I'm glad it's not sold. I mean, not to be mean towards the sellers, but it reminds me why I never want to take an overpriced listing again, because we can't create motivation. That's the one thing we can't do. If somebody doesn't want to buy a house, you're not going to make them buy a house. Maybe Vogel, but any of the rest of us, no. When he catches this on tape later, he'll love that. But seriously, you just can't create motivation. So it's just knowing the facts here. And so let me just go in real quick and show you the back to the PowerPoint again. There we go. So we got Mr. Graph there. Now, building a great comparative market analysis. Again, you really got to look at the same guidelines, or one of the guidelines that an appraiser is going to utilize. And the first thing is to look at that subject neighborhood or subdivision. And what you want to do is you want to pull up a 12-month history of active, pending, chauffeur backups, and sold properties. You then want to do that same report with 6 months, because what you're able to do is compare one to the other and say, is the market staying the same? Is it going up, or is it going down? And you're also able to look at the median, the highs, and the lows, and you're going to be able to look at, hey, is the absorption rate going down or up? Okay, so then you've just got a quick snapshot of what direction is the neighborhood going. If you've ever done a BPO for a relocation company, they ask about market trend. Well, that's how you can establish a market trend. Are things selling faster or slower? Are they selling for more or less? Very easy. If there are enough comparables, you should only utilize the previous 6 months of inventory, because many of the lenders are making the appraisers, oh, they can't go back more than 6 months, at most a year. You want to compare like properties. 2 stories with 2 stories, 1.5s with 1.5s where possible. Now, do appraisers mix 2 stories and 1.5s? Yes, sometimes, but they're always going to give more credit towards the 1.5 because they're a more expensive home to build. Ranches are the most expensive to build, followed by 1.5 stories, followed by 2 stories, then reverses, etc. You also try and use the same comparable bedrooms and baths. Now, if a property has 1 more bedroom or bath or less, that's okay. They can do pluses and minuses to coordinate for that. I mean, general rule of thumb I use for Johnson County is like $10,000 for a bedroom, full bath, about $7,500. And again, it all depends on the neighborhood and factors like that. But again, at least then you're able to look at a good spectrum of the area there. Other things to look at, you know, again, number of garage spots, whether or not they're regular garage spots or tandem, whether it's a walkout basement, a daylight basement, a walk-up basement, or it's just a full basement. And in here, you also have your uniform appraisal data set conditions and quality definitions. Now, the appraisers use, for as an addition on condition, they use this scale right here of C1 being, and by the way, in order to get a C1, it has to be a new home. Nothing else can be a C1. Number 1 in condition, okay? But if you read through these descriptions, and you're objective. And this is why for sale by owners typically do not sell. And this is also why realtors' personal homes do not sell either. I know you've gone in and seen realtors' homes expiring or canceling, okay? So, of course, you're giggling a little bit going, why would anybody hire you? You can't sell your own home. But we're emotionally attached to our homes, okay? Probably a little bit more so now than before. And again, our job as realtors is to be able to look at a home objectively, the same way that an appraiser is able to look at it objectively. And at the end of the day, after all these numbers, you still have to be able to look at, here's the listing that's sold down the street, and here's the property you're looking to list. And you have to be able to look at them and go, this one's kitchen is nicer. This one's master bedroom is nicer, and why? When you read through these condition descriptions, if you're honest with yourself, you're going to be sitting there going, my client thinks that this is a C2. Now, I love this part of C2 in condition. Virtually all building components are new or have been recently repaired, replaced, or refinished. Okay, and you look at some of these where it says things like, where's the one? Oh, that dwellings in this category either are almost new or have been completely renovated or are similar in condition to a new home. Now, I did view one of these recently with my client. It was a builder's personal home. They're elderly. It's 13 years old, and it looked like it was 2 years old. Those are so rare to find. Okay, I mean, it was just there wasn't dust on the vents, you know, the exchange vents. I mean, not many properties do you find in that condition. So I would have said, that's a C2. But again, that's what we have to be able to look at objectively, is what really is the condition there. Because now I like to use a stager to do the heavy lifting, by the way. I don't want to address the ugly border they have in their kitchen, or the fact that their deep blue party room can't be colored that way, or whatever it is. I let my stager go in and give that feedback and do the heavy lifting. But I can look at the overall condition and say, your neighbor's house is nicer, that's why it sold for $10,000 more. Same thing with quality rankings, and you have the definitions there, 1 through 4. Obviously, if you haven't read through an appraisal, at some point you will, because you will have a property that fails to appraise, and you need to be able to look at this because they make mistakes too. And when they do, you want to get a reconsideration done, and this is the way that you do it. Now, you see this list of codes here. This is the Uniform Appraisal Data Set. So these are all the codes that go onto an appraisal. So here they are for you, so you actually know what those codes mean. And here's another thing that, let me just pull this up. There is my MLS. There it is. One second, let me get this up and then I'll answer any quick questions, but I'll go a lot more into 102, and I'll get that on the calendar likely for next month for y'all. But that's where we'll get in and get dirty with it, actually get into doing some projects and showing you some of the fine-tune tricks that you can do here. But again, we have access to so much good information. Now, I will honestly say that my application went in today for the Tri-Lakes board. So now I'm a member of 6 different boards. St. Louis, it'll be the Tri-Lakes, Western, wherever, Missouri, Lawrence, Topeka, and our board. So But that's kind of cool because now I can actually pull up reports, as I said, and tell that where our sales are as a brokerage all over, not just for our MLS. So it's kind of cool, some of the reports that I'm able to pull up now. But again, there's so much information that we do have. The one tool that I wish we did have that a lot of the other MLSs have is when they pick just an MLS sheet like this, as an example, and they click on it, it actually has right up there where it says list price, it has price per square foot right there. So a lot of the MLSs do that. We aren't quite there. Went out and viewed this property, by the way, yesterday with my client. I was sitting there going, easy highway access, because I mean, I can't tell you how many back roads I was on to actually get to this little place on the lake. It was very pretty. Now, it went on the market yesterday, and you read the instructions here, and all offers being presented today at 10:30 a.m. Well, that was a long marketing time, wasn't it? Not to say, I know she had multiple offers already, and my clients opted not to put in an offer, but this was probably, got to show you the one photos because it was kind of cool. It had a beautiful outdoor living area on this, but I did like the job they did with the drone photos here. That's kind of cool. You know, again, we can virtually market homes now, and we can do a heck of a lot better. And that's probably the one positive of this pandemic, is I think that a lot of realtors will have to up their game now. And I think all of us have seen that we can use certain technologies to our advantage. I mean, I can totally see doing a virtual buyer consultation. I can share screens with them, show them how to search the same way I do there. I can do it where they're on their own computer. I can show them how to search for a home. You know, I tell them if there's only 4 photos, don't bother. You know, it's a dive. They're hiding things from you. But I show them how to use the Google Street View. I tell them how to search for all of those things, because it just makes my job easier, because this way they're looking through and they know, you know, if they're looking at the virtual earth map, they've told me they don't want to back to a street, well, I show them how they can tell if that property backs to a street. It's just time savings for you. But I can absolutely see doing buyer consultations via Zoom as easily or more easily than on a monitor at the office. I could certainly see going over a lot of the offers, things of that nature, though, I mean, we have great tools through Continental. By the way, just sadly, we just got not the Plaza office, but one of my offices just took a fair housing complaint. And I hate them more than anything else. It's going to be like 2 months of torture, because they are extremely bad, which is why I tell you, especially, by the way, April is Fair Housing Month. Okay. So
Did not know.
it is. And it's good to refresh your memory on those things. And of course, I've said this before, but likely one of the next ones will be one of the love letters going out there, because I don't even show my own clients the last names. I mean, I literally show them either a spreadsheet or the Continental app and go, here's what each one is offering. Here's how much they're putting down. This is how much they have in earnest money. This is the loan to value. This is the bank they have the financing. This is the closing date. Do they have kids? Don't know, don't care. This is how much they're offering. You know, that's just even asking a question like that is a violation. So, you know, letting them know that up front that, you know, we can't, and I would not want to see you involved in one of my client either. But we do have to be really careful. And so if I do get one of the love letters in, that's where it goes. And, you know, just so save some people, but it's a
shame because I'm really good at writing them.
I bet you are. I'm not doubting you for an instant. But here's the thing. If you do it, you better make sure you do it with each and every buyer you ever work with.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's
I haven't done it 2 summers ago, I think was the height of it for me.
Oh, you used to write them for them. Wow.
Well, no. I would give suggestions and show examples and then, yeah.
So your creative writing skills are really good. All right.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
on this? Okay, so Katie Forrest has taken this class obviously before, and she kind of walked me through some of this before today. And I'm working
She's
on
in
pricing.
violation of copyright then. Good. All right.
Oh no.
I'll have her serve. Go ahead. Just
Information sharing. So I'm working on pricing a Prairie Village home, and I kind of hit some of these websites. I'm going to go back and do it again and make sure I was doing everything correctly.
Yeah.
But when I gather all of the information from all of the different sites, I get a very large range.
Okay, and Prairie Village, in all honesty, Prairie Village does defy all logic. I mean, literally, Prairie Village is unique because you can have a house on this side of the street, and on the other side, it's worth $60,000 more.
Yeah.
So again, looking at tax appraised value, realist, RPR, doing the CMA, and you've really got to get good on the CMA. That component of it is a huge piece of it. You know, on average, a lot of areas you'll come up with a range, and I generally like to stay within 10 to 25,000. And I didn't pull this one up, but I know I've distributed this tool, but I just want to pull it up real quickly. But this is one of the tools that, I mean, I think number one, in today's marketplace, if you price something right, you're going to have multiple offers. And so literally the newest agent in the world accidentally underprices a home, the market will fix it for them. They could underprice it by 20 grand. And they'll be getting offers just escalating over one another, hopefully escalating properly, because that drives me nuts. Recently, I've heard from some people, oh, well, that doesn't work anymore, those escalatory addendums. No, they work just fine. You're not using them right, maybe, but they work just fine because the only difference is everybody and their mother has them now. And back then, we were the only game in town that had them. So this is one of the tools that I honestly do have in my listing binder. Let me just share that with you. And I know you've probably seen it before, but I do use it literally all the time. And let me share this. So 102 will fill in a lot of those fine points, but I'm happy to answer something for you now. But this is something that absolutely every time, this is in my listing presentation binder, and this is something that's really easy to demonstrate because you're showing them down here in the lower right-hand column of the spreadsheet. Look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, the properties that are priced right and they look good, they come onto the market, they flow right back off in under 30 days. And obviously you can show that by the absorption rate, right? There's like just a few that are slightly over a month's worth of inventory. Mm-hmm. And very honestly, if you've priced a property correctly, it shouldn't be there in 2 weeks in some of these price points. Should be there a couple of days, to tell you the truth. And again, this goes back to the ones that are overpriced just 4 to 6% because we're very conservative here in the Midwest. They will get showings, but they'll get no offers. And this is when realtors get into denial. And I'm not talking about the river in Egypt either. It's like, oh, but it's priced right, but it's not, I'm not getting any showings. No, it's not priced right. If you was, you'd be getting showings. I mean, even now, with what's going on, I see people putting properties on the market and there's multiple offers and they're gone. in a day. So the buyers, I think even if half the buyers left the market right now because they lost their jobs and they're not able to buy right away, I generally don't see us shifting out of the seller's market in the 400 and below range. I mean, I've been tracking these numbers too long. And yes, I do take a few phone calls. I cringe looking down at my phone and how many calls I've had come in. And this is the other thing that demonstrates, hey, you overpriced 6 to 12%. But where I utilize this is, if I've done my job, because I'm big on setting expectations, if I've done my job properly, and, I have one that a client's getting ready right now, and likely it's worth 200. And I've already told her we're going to go on the market at 190, below the value of the home. Because I said I want a feeding frenzy. I want to go live Thursday late in the day, and I want to put you out of your misery by Sunday. Okay? So that's, I've already outlined the plan, and it's going to happen just that way. And I'll have a ton of offers, and we get to pick and that's so important right now too, because, they're doing, as you heard on the team meeting, multiple employment checks like 4 times before closing. Then Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac's calling afterwards. And if those people have lost their job, they're charging those loans back to the lenders. Okay. So they're watching all of this stuff too. And so it is, incredibly important to get it right. But I'd rather what I tell them is if we price it just a little bit below the market value, you'll get more than if we tried to stretch it out and get more money. We really will. And I think that comes out consistently. I mean, even that home, I don't know, I never did run the numbers on that lake home that I was showing you, but I can tell you this, she couldn't allow any more showings yesterday. Literally, when I went in to schedule an appointment, every single time block was blocked off. And I managed to get the 5 to 5:15 showing on that property. So has she done her job right? Yes. And that's, as I said, if you take the time to explain that to the client and say, if I've done my job right, we should have multiple offers. Then when you deliver the multiple offers, they don't think, which is a misnomer of a lot of sellers, that, I underpriced the home or overpriced the home. Underpriced, no, underpriced the home. No, you didn't. By going in a little bit below market value, we'll end up selling for more than if we had tried to stretch it out and get more. So, any other questions? Well, I'm sure you do, but you have to wait for 102.
Right.
I can't just give you everything, but thank you for sharing part of the afternoon with me. And
I will say I checked in with Elizabeth and she said that the handout never went through to her.
okay.
So we never got the handout. So I was trying to take screenshots and or take notes, but I still would love the handout if it can get sent out.
Hold on 1 second. It's weird that did not go out. I'll just email me. I'll respond and I'll attach the Dropbox link. How's that sound?
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, you bet. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you for
you,
your
Randy.
time.
Tune in on Friday at 3 o'clock.
Will be.
Okay.
Have a
Appreciate
beverage
it.
with me. Okay, have a good one.